Well, wild bison are certainly a sore subject of sorts with Montana ranchers, especially in Phillips County. And rightfully so, and that's why groups like the Montana Stock Growers, Montana Public Lands Council, Montana Farm Bureau, and even the state of Montana itself have made wild bison management such a top priority. With us now is Montana Attorney General Austin Knudsen. And Austin, give us the latest on this very important issue to Montana's ranching industry, more specifically, APR's wild bison in Phillips County and the federal government.
Yeah, so the latest is we are still in front of a federal appeals judge within the BLM. We have to go through their administrative appeals process before we can get into federal court. I think we probably end up there anyway, but this is a step we have to take. But look, we're in front of an appeals judge right now. We just this week, the state of Montana, my office, filed a motion for summary judgment. What we're asking for is for a final determination from this judge. We don't need this to go any further. Judge, you have enough information, you can rule on this now. We believe that the BLM is pretty flagrantly violating the Taylor Grazing Act. State or federal law is very clear. Bison are not livestock. That federal land, the priority use is livestock grazing, and livestock, as you know, is a defined term. Buffalo, bison doesn't appear in federal code anywhere. So what's happened here is BLM has stepped in and they've kind of shoehorned in this term indigenous livestock. It's a nonsense term, doesn't exist anywhere in federal code. They created it out of thin air, and that's really the basis for our action here. So that's where we are. We're hopeful we get a good ruling.
How frustrating is it for those in Montana's livestock industry, including you? I mean, your family's involved with the livestock industry here in Big Sky Country, that we're even having to talk about this issue after the BLM opened this issue up for public comment. We had some virtual meetings. You and the governor had an in-person meeting or two. Overwhelmingly heard opposition from Montana's livestock industry, and here we are still talking about this.
Well, I mean, this is what happens when you've got Deb Haaland, who's the head of Interior, and you've got Tracy Stone Manning, who is a radical liberal from right here in Montana, who is in charge of the Federal Bureau of Land Management. This is what happens when you get radical leftists like this in these positions of power. They start trying to pass regulations and do things that aren't even in federal code. It's extremely frustrating. You know, the quote unquote, public comment session that BLM had, it was virtual. They did it in the middle of summertime and on a weekday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when they knew all the farmers and ranchers in Phillips County were out in the hayfields. That was intentional. So what did my office do? We went and we did an in-person actual public listening session. I couldn't believe it, Russell. It was a Thursday afternoon, Wednesday or Thursday. I bet we had 400 people show up in the auditorium in Malta. I was amazed. I thought there'd at least be somebody who was in favor of this BLM move. 100% of the people who attended, the locals who attended, were opposed to this action. It's incredibly frustrating to see this coming out of Washington, D.C., and them just trying to shove it down our throats here in Montana.
Austin, describe too, while we're doing this interview, for folks outside of Montana, how dangerous of a precedent this could set for other states who could be facing similar issues like this in the future.
It's extremely dangerous. This should be concerning to attorneys general, governors, legislators across the country. If a federal agency can step in and change the use of federal land, change federal law with just the stroke of a pen, a regulation change at the agency level, that's pretty staggering. When you talk about national parks, you can talk about federal lands, grazing lands, but I mean, this could go further. We could really open Pandora's box here if this is allowed to stand. I don't think we're in danger of that. I really don't. The U.S. Supreme Court has been very clear in the last couple of years. It does not look kindly on agencies taking this kind of sweeping, law-changing actions at the agency level. We've got a number of cases that are very clear on that. So I think if we end up having to go to the U.S. Supreme Court, I think BLM is going to get slapped down pretty hard here.
Hey, lastly, as we wait for a decision regarding your last filing and just wait for more on this big issue, I mean, what can farmers and ranchers do, not just in Phillips County, not just here in Montana, but everywhere where this issue matters to them, be doing?
Well, I mean, stay in touch with with your federal delegation, I would say first and foremost. Secondly, vote. Pay attention to how you're voting and who you're voting for. I mean, you got to realize that, I mean, these kind of policies come from, they come from the halls of Congress and from some members of our federal delegation that maybe are pushing some of the stuff behind the scenes. So your vote does matter, but I would say, I mean, stay involved. Make sure the governor's office still hears from you. Make sure my office is still hearing from you. Contact Senator Daines. Contact Senator Tester and let him know what we think about this, because he needs to hear it the most. You know, if anyone's got the Biden administration's ear, it's John Tester.
Thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks for having
Montana
me.
Attorney General Austin Knudsen talking about a very important issue impacting Montana's ranching industry, wild bison. And for more on this big topic, you can always visit us online at westernagnetwork.com or check us out on Facebook, or better yet, subscribe to us on YouTube.